Thank you for joining us for this episode. Today I'm joined by Dr. Jennifer Stewart, and we're going to be discussing starting from scratch, pulling the plug on the OI show. Thanks again for joining us today. I'm so excited to be joined by my friend, Jennifer Stewart. How are you, doctor?
I'm good. How are you today?
I'm so good. We start these podcasts, and usually before we start recording, we chit chat with each other. But in this case, we hardly chit chatted at all. We just dove right in because I want to know all about what's been happening in your life. And there's been so many things that I've learned from you over the years. You've got such a great perspective.
Thank you.
More to come on that. But so we did a OI show probably a year and a half ago or so, and you were leaving practice and getting out and doing a new thing, and here you are doing a
I'm back.
whole new thing. And I would love to hear a little bit about the journey, and I'm sure I'm going to have dozens of questions all throughout. But what is Jennifer Stewart up to these days?
I know I was thinking about that the last time I was here. Life was so different. I sold my practice in June of 2022 that I owned. I had a large group practice that I owned. I joined basically out of school, became an associate there, grew it to a large four-doctor practice, and at 41 years old, stepped away and decided to take a break from clinical care and spend time consulting and speaking and doing awesome podcasts and getting out and going to conferences and meetings and seeing what was next. And everyone said, "What are you going to do next?" I said, "I have absolutely no idea. I don't know. I've never taken a break." And I realized that I missed patient care and that I love seeing patients. And I think it was a great reset and time to reflect on that. And it was really nice to come back and do it the way I wanted to do it. I cold started my practice, Look New Canaan, in February of 2024. So we are, closing in on our, ninth month here being open, and it's been so much fun. I know that's what we started talking about. I was like, wait, this is good content. We have to, hit record first. But it's been really
Yeah.
fun to reinvent myself and to do it all over again.
So after you closed on the practice, you one day didn't go to work. It was the first day where it was like I'm no longer a practice owner. Um, what did that season look like for you? What kind of things did you learn in that period? Because you were doing all of those things. You were
Yes,
going to conferences, you
yeah,
were
yeah.
podcasting, you were doing consulting. So what did that season look like, and what did you learn in that season other than that you liked patients after all?
It's so funny. I finished on a Wednesday and I only saw patients Monday through Wednesday. So I typically was not in the practice Thursday and Friday. And Monday morning, I remember I got on a plane and I flew to, I think, Wisconsin to speak for Cooper Vision. So it was a short lived break. And, I was like, well, I have nothing else to do on Monday. So why not? Um, I think it was really interesting to me. What I love speaking about and learning and teaching and interacting with people is about business and starting a business, which I had never done, not a primary practice, but running a business and learning from people. And what happened to me was I started thinking and listening and going, wow, there's so many great ideas out there. And I did it one way. If people would say, like, what would you do different, or what are you doing in your practice? I go, well, I don't have a practice anymore. And that started to kind of percolate. If I were to ever do it again, what would I do? And I think that's what I started taking away from meetings was not that I intended to ever go back. I had no idea what I wanted to do. And it just started to really kind of sit with me going, well, there's so many great ideas out there. Could I even come up with my own ideas? And that's what I learned and took away from all the meetings and the traveling and the speaking was not so much what I was giving to people, but what I was taking in. And I think
Hmm.
I was looking at it in a different perspective because I was so open to hearing all the things
Hmm.
that people are doing versus, kind of what I typically do is give my perspective and hope that I've inspired or taught something. Instead, I had, really, as I say, no horse in this race. I could just listen and take more information in. And I started to file it away once I kind of decided that I was going to do something with it.
What did you what were some of the things that you were like, this could be different if I did it, and this would be different? What are those things where you were like, you know, and knowing you, you could have implemented all of these things into your clinic back in the day,
Yes,
right? But it's harder than
it's
starting off
harder.
fresh. So what were the
Yes.
things that you were like, oh, I would do this different?
So the big one is location. I knew if I were to do it all over again, I love retail, I love optical, I love beautiful eyewear. I love that part of optometry, and we're so lucky that we have that. So I knew my former practice was on the third floor of a medical building, so no foot traffic, not a very visible location. And my dream was to have a very visible storefront with big windows and beautiful, a beautiful space. And that's kind of what stuck with me was, if I could do it all over again and focus on eyewear that I love, and I know what I love in optometry, could I build a practice around that and really, spending time talking about building an optical business. If I were starting over, what would I do and how would that look different than taking a large practice? I always call it like a cruise ship. It's hard to make changes in a really big practice. You don't have the time. You're just, so busy. You've got a huge staff. It's always been done the same way, but starting over, really I could do anything I wanted. And it was such a great opportunity after 17 years in optometry to start over and to think about, what do I want? What does the next phase of my career look like? What practice would make me look forward to going to work every day? What does that look like now for me? And having the opportunity to create that.
Why do you think more people who don't have the location that maybe is visually desirable don't move in that direction? Is it because the lease is way more expensive and they're caught in on the budget that they currently have and now having to spend one or two or three or $4,000 more than they currently have? Is that holding them back, or is it just moving a practice is a major hassle?
Think it comes down to the practice model. So I think it really, I always say when we designed Look New Canaan, I had the perfect patient in mind. And I had the avatar of the patient I wanted to attract in mind and what I wanted their experience to look like. It didn't fit in a medical building. And even when we were looking at spaces, my realtor, I kept saying, don't show me office spaces. I don't want to be there. I am a very retail, this practice is going to be very retail focused. So sticking me in the corner on the, sixth floor of the end of a hallway where no one's going to see me is not my business model. But that doesn't mean that what I'm doing is right for everybody. If this was a highly medically based practice, this would not be the right spot for it. A, we're not zoned for that. And B, my rent is retail space rent on purpose, yes, which comes at a price. But
Mhm.
I think, no one, if you're trying to attract a more medically focused practice, you're not hoping a glaucoma patient just like walks in and, hey, do you treat glaucoma? I want people walking in off the street to buy eyewear. So I think, kind of going into it saying, what is my business model, and being really specific about the patients you're trying to attract will help kind of put you in the right location. And then you
Yeah,
build your budget around that. And
yeah.
with that comes I'll say a cost in quotes. Like my space is smaller. I have 1,875 square feet, which is
Smaller
plenty
than
of
you used to
space.
have. Yeah.
Yeah, it's smaller, but it's exactly what I need. But if I had a very medically based practice with lots of equipment and multiple, seeing tons of patients, it would be too small. So I think it really drives on what type of practice you want, and that will help kind of find the right location and figure out, the rent here is expensive, but I also get a lot of walk-ins who come in with prescriptions and come in and buy non-prescription sunglasses. So that expensive rent is my marketing cost. So but it goes with the business model that we've created.
Yeah. Yeah. What else did you learn?
Oh my gosh, I learned that it is amazing how quickly people will find you if you provide good care. I mean, that's not a surprise, I guess. It's not, it's kind of a, well, of course, but starting over, there's always that hesitation of, oh my gosh, are people, I went from, a really busy practice where I was booked out for a year to an open book, which stretches for months and months and months. So how do you
Well, let me ask you
attract
for
patients? Yeah.
clarification.
Yeah.
How close are you to your old practice, and
I'm
are a whole
about
bunch of
7
people?
miles. Yep.
So
So I'm close.
are people finding you that
Yeah.
were at the other practice?
Yeah.
And how does that
Yes.
work with like a non-compete or when you sold your practice?
So, I'm out of all of the restrictions. So I always encourage anyone that I work with who's thinking of opening cold, making sure you're legal, I've worked with doctors who are looking to cold start who have no idea what they are legally obligated to do. So that's always my feedback and my advice is make sure you have a good legal team and legal person to make sure. So I'm about 7 miles. I'm a couple communities away, very different community. So it's a mix. It's like a perfect mix, I'd say, of former patients and new.
Yeah.
We had a big start with lots of former patients and friends who are waiting, and then it dropped off. It dropped
Yeah.
off once all those people had come in. There was kind of this
Right.
drop off that was a little terrifying.
So the difference is these former patients aren't coming to you because of your location, where a lot of patients were coming to your old location for the location.
Yeah,
These are people that are loyal to you. They're having to drive out of their way to
yeah,
get there, and that makes sense. Okay.
yes.
And so, but beyond that, now you're saying that people will find you if you provide good care.
Yeah,
That's the scary part for me. Like,
yeah,
and I think the
yeah,
same thing for you is like, I don't want to start over because I'm going to
yeah.
have to like start at the
Start from
bottom.
scratch.
And
Yeah. I was like, what if
yes,
people don't come? Like,
I know.
what if this is a big mistake? I think
And
I'm
you
really
have a
good.
reputation. You have a reputation.
Yeah.
Like you can't fail. Otherwise, people will look at you and be like, hey, you're a phony.
You're not really that good. So that was a little bit, it was a little bit of a oh my gosh moment. And then
Right.
my husband's great. He always kind of keeps me on track. He said, not everyone is due for an eye exam when you think that you want to be busy. So he said, just because and all your friends, just a lot of them came in when you opened, and there might be periods where people just aren't due, right? It's not something you're just going to do because you want to, we're on a schedule. So
Yeah.
that keeps me from, kind of these times where I'm like, oh my gosh, but it's really rewarding. Like I was just sitting here when I was waiting for you to come on and somebody booked an appointment. And I still get really excited when somebody books online. I get the email. I'm like, oh, I click on it. Do I know them? So it's really great, and I feel like I've reset how I see patients instead of just, looking at the day and coming in and going, "Okay, like, I have to get through these patients. I just have to, I'm just gonna do my thing." I'm refreshed in the way I go in there and sell myself, right? I'm selling myself, I'm selling a practice, and I'm selling an experience, and I feel refreshed going in there with all new patients that don't know me. The former ones are easy because that's just a lot of catching up, but I'm selling myself again almost as a new doctor, and I am a new doctor here, and giving them an experience that's different. They're here for a reason. They've been somewhere else, so they're looking for a change, and I'm embracing that and trying to give them something different that they have been missing. And it's been very refreshing because we spend a lot of time with patients. I have cut back the number of patients I see significantly, and it gives me more time to spend with those patients and answer lots of questions and provide lots of different solutions that they might not have had before.
So I don't presume that necessarily every day you have a full book, but if you did have a full book, how much time would you be spending with the patient right now?
Right now, we're scheduling one patient an hour,
Okay.
which my
And
old
there's
self, my mind would like,
blow up.
yeah.
Yep. Yeah. And
So,
there's
and
multiple
to,
reasons why that is the case, right?
and to clarify, I don't spend an hour with each patient like that. Some
Right.
people are like, oh my gosh, how do you do that? That would be so boring. And I was like, I don't sit there and look at the clock and go, I just have to drag this out for another 50 minutes. And so it's
But
not
you
that I'm
have the
saying
time if
I
you
have
need
the
it.
time. Yep. Or,
Yeah.
and people appreciate that. And, we've created a different type of business model that supports less patients. And I don't need to rely on that volume of
Mhm.
patients coming in. And we will get, my ideal is that we will probably cut that back at some point. Although I will tell you, I
Sure.
am really enjoying it. So,
Yeah.
but I don't
So,
sit there for an hour with
y
everybody.
here's a thought in the back of my mind is, and there's probably some truth to this. So, I'm gonna just ask the question everybody else is asking is, she had a huge practice, had a ton of staff, saw tons of patients. sold that practice for probably a reasonable amount of money, and now this is just a hobby. Now, knowing you, you certainly aren't going to lose money, right? Because that's
Yeah.
not you. You're a business person. You want to
Yes.
make sure. But is somebody else doing this? Where is the financial benefit gonna catch up? Like how long, if I did this, what you're doing, how long in your mind are you waiting before you're like, okay, this is a maybe not as good as you used to make, but this is a good financial thing. I'm making a good amount of money again.
We
You know
were,
what I'm asking?
yes. I mean, we have been very fortunate in the way that I've controlled costs and really looked at the financials. We have been profitable since the beginning, which is very rare in a cold start. I feel very lucky and very fortunate. But I was also very diligent and I like to call it smart about the way that we took on business debt and the way that I spent money and the way that I'm staffed and the way that I control my costs. So it's not just for me what we bring in, it's also what we put out and what we're spending. I'm not penny pinching. I'm not like, oh my gosh, use like one paper towel, but it's actually kind of fun to start and think about, okay, if I'm going to do this, how can I do it, you know, not cheaply. It's definitely not cheap. Like my design and build out was very important to me, but I also was super creative in controlling the cost there. We did no custom cabinetry. I did everything I did desks and bookcases. So my construction cost is a fraction of what most is. And I've had people say to me, "Oh, well, you must live in a really inexpensive area to have inexpensive construction." I live in one of the most expensive counties in the country, in Connecticut. So costs, I mean, my costs are very high, but I knew what was important to me budgeting wise of what I wanted to spend on and how to control that so that when I started seeing patients and having, profitability, that I could balance that without saying I need to make a ton of money because I've spent so much. How do I balance that? And yes, it is refreshing to be here and to do it not, it is nice because I can go into it with a different mindset and not eat ramen noodles at night.
Yeah.
But I watch everything. I pay every bill. I look at every invoice. I am very cognizant of what we spend, and keeping that balance has helped us really do a nice job, and provide a really great level of service and spend where it's important to me to spend. And that I
Yeah.
think is the biggest piece.
You know what I loved about what you just brought in, and this is so reflective of you as an incredible business person, is when I asked you about making money, you didn't tell me about making money. You told me about spending money. And that is a true representative of somebody who looks at business the right way. And so many of us are guilty of is like, if I want to make more money, I have to make more money rather than looking at where I'm spending my money.
Yeah.
And that's just so brilliant that you said that. What are some things that you thought you had to have in practice that now, as you look back, you are like, maybe that wasn't as important? I'll give you a great example is we have the technological hub of practice. And if I started over, I think I'd do things a lot different. I don't need to have every exam room connected, right? I don't know that if I was having that 1 hour appointment with a patient, that I would need to have the speed of technology in every single way as an upfront cost, maybe as you grow. But what were some of the things that you had to have in practice when you were a four-doctor practice that now you've been like, you know what, I can wait for that, or maybe I don't never need it at all?
That's a great question. The one that freaks people out the most, which is my favorite, is that I don't have a front desk.
I love it.
Fine, people, whenever I say it, they're like, but that doesn't work, or it's not going to work, or how does it work? And
We've been
it
looking at seeing how can we drop it.
it's amazing. And I can't take credit. This was my husband's idea. We were designing our front desk. We were working with our design team and starting to, price it out. And my husband said, "Do we actually need a front desk?" I go, "Well, yeah, of course you need like he's from the finance industry." I was like, "Yeah, like, yes, we need a front desk." And he said, "But why?" And I said, "Well, like a front desk where people walk in to check in." And he said, "But we don't have phones up front. Like we use Weave and we have everything. And we have a business office in the back. So I have a phone here. There's no phones up front. There were not never going to be. We do everything by text. We don't have any paperwork. We don't use paperwork at all. We do all of our intake in the exam room. Myself or my technician does all the history. We collect demographics when they make the appointment. So there's no actual paperwork. And he said, so we're just gonna pay somebody to like sit at a desk to like smile at people and greet them where they need to be. So we decided to take the leap and say, we're a small practice. It's a boutique concierge feel. There's no front desk. And 9 months in, I have zero regrets. It has worked really well. It takes discipline and staff training. I think it would be hard going from a practice that had one to losing one.
Yeah.
Um, that's a little
So
different.
walk
People
me
don't
through
love
that
change.
patient journey. What's that journey look like? They walk in the door.
They walk in the door, and usually we don't have all of my team have laptops. So a lot of them choose to actually work up front. Our space is all windows in the front, and we're on a really cool street. So it's more fun than sitting back here. I tend to hide back here so that no one walks in and I have to, get a lot of reps that walk in and I'm like, oh, it's not Dr. Stewart. That's not her. So I tend to be in the back, but they, usually one or two of I have two staff right now, and one of them is usually parked her laptop at a dispensing desk and is working from there because we use Weave. So every computer has Weave on there. So we're texting patients. So anyone that walks in, one of us and myself included jumps up to greet them and, welcome to look, how can we help you? Either if they have an exam scheduled, we bring them right back. There's no waiting. If they're here to look at glasses, one of us will help them look at glasses, but there's no need for us for somebody to greet them and just smile and say have a seat. And patients have loved it. It goes again with our practice feel. I didn't want it to look like a doctor's office. I wanted people to feel that they could walk in off the street and just come in and browse. And I felt, a front desk can almost feel intimidating, like, oh, I have to have an appointment. So we made that conscious effort not to do it. And it was, we had a lot of training that went into it. I said, everybody's the front desk person. We're all responsible for greeting a patient. I'll jump up too. If everyone's busy, I, go out and say hi to people, but the patients have loved it. They notice, and there has not been one. I've never had somebody say, oh gosh, I'm never coming back because you don't have a front desk. So many people are like, oh my gosh,
Yeah.
that's the worst part is like going out. It's like awkward. And, I never have the right paperwork or they're always on the phone. So
Yeah.
listening to the patient feedback has been really positive.
And the other thing for the front desk is the checkout and scheduling.
Yeah.
So do you just do that in the exam room or at the
We
dispensing
do right
desk?
at the desk. So whoever, my opticians actually check everybody out, whether they're exam only glasses or
Yep.
contact lenses, because it's
Yep.
a great option for them, again, to recommend a backup pair of
Yep.
glasses for our contact lens wearers, or we pre-select every time somebody's in the exam room, we pre-select glasses for them anyway, whether they're getting them or not. So they're sitting
Mhm.
on a tray while they're checking out. So my optical team actually checks everybody out. And in that way they can make sure that they don't need anything else, or recommend if they need glasses or anything, that we're here for them. So they do all the checkout up there, and then they schedule them for whatever they need. So no front desk needed.
No. No. We've so in our office, we've been asking some of these similar questions, and I think as our listeners are probably struggling with this as well, as we go through these huge waves of struggles, and the biggest wave I think that most eye care practices are dealing with right now is retaining team members and then hiring and getting people up to speed, because eye care is a horrible field for training of team members because we don't have any schooling that is
Yeah.
associated with it. Nobody goes to school to become an eye care optician
Something.
or technician. Now, an optician maybe because
Yeah.
there's some optician schools out there, but each state's different in that. They
Yeah.
may or may not have it. Whereas if you're a dental hygienist or you're something else. So there's that struggle of coming in and out of eye care for some people. Now there's certainly those in your that you've dealt with over the years, and I have somebody who's been in the field for 20 years, and this is what they do, right?
Yeah.
So we've been asking that very question, and one of the things that we've been dabbling with is we have remote scribes that are with us in the exam room. You had this when you were at your other practices. I would have a scribe, I would
Yeah.
have a resident, and sometimes an observer in the exam room with me, right? And I just like after COVID, I was like,
Yeah.
well, first of all,
Too
we
many.
people don't want people in the room with them. And so we've now gone to remote scribes, which just reduces the number of people in the room. And then the doctor can still have some face to face time and they're not having to look at the computer. and then that scribe can do extra things on the back end. And we've just kind of asked the
Or
question is like, why can't that scribe right there schedule a patient? I loved the model of getting rid of extra people in the office just because of an occasional, overlap. That's a really good thing to do. And wiping the slate clean helps you revisit some of the problems I'm sure you dealt with in practice.
it's and no one has missed it. And that was
No,
I was so nervous. And what we did is we actually wired for like a pendant light where I wanted the desk, because my contractor was like, nothing's permanent, but he's like, while we're wiring, if you think you want a front desk here and you want, we had it planned for like this beautiful pendant light. He's like, why don't we wire for it? If this is an epic failure and you hate it, we'll punch it down and you get your desk. And it's been so great,
that's
and it
awesome.
really, it gives us a little waiting room area, which people don't really wait, but it has eliminated that step. And it's also, looking, I have less staff than I thought I needed. We could probably use like a half a person, which we're looking
It's really hard to
possibly.
find a half a
It's so
person.
hard. I know, a half per, it's just
It's
the
like the
top. Like
left
I need the
hand or the
hands.
right
Yeah, I
hand,
need the
right?
hands, but then like, yeah, I don't. It's so, and with our model, we don't need as many people and we don't have as many bodies. And that was a hard one for me, because we had a large staff, and there, we had so many things that needed to be done. And now, like, my office manager has worked with me for 16 years. And when she came on here, I said, I want to streamline everything. So help me make your life better. It's not me that's doing all the paperwork or
Right.
whatever. How can we make this as easy as possible so that we don't need somebody just pushing paper and doing things? So it's an ongoing, process of trying to be, as paperless as possible, as, making sure everything is done as easily and as efficient as possible, so that we don't just need bodies here to do things. And my technician actually just left a month ago. So we had 3 people and now we're down to 2. And there was that knee-jerk reaction almost to like panic and put up an Indeed
Yeah.
ad and like, oh my gosh, we have to hire somebody. And we kind of paused and said, okay, do we need somebody? Can we make this work? And, I'm now going to start, pre-testing my own patients if needed, which I haven't done in 17 years.
Right.
But I have the time, and
Yeah.
it's not the worst thing. And I help people with glasses. We kind of all do everything. And
Sure.
for now, it's just actually me and my office manager here today. My optician's on vacation. So it's 2 of us.
Yeah.
And, hopefully we have the rest of the week, but we've done it before, and it's a different flow, but my
Yeah.
staffing cost is way lower. So that's
Wow.
something that's a nice benefit to keeping those costs low.
Yeah. You're right. We could talk about this for hours. This is incredible. Maybe we'll have to set up some
Let's do
specific
part 2.
themes,
Yeah.
part 2 and
Every
do
month. I'll
another
be on
one.
every month.
Yeah.
And
That
ask the
sounds
listeners
good.
what they want to hear about. So
That's right. There we go. I love it. Well, you're awesome. Thank you for being on the show. Always enjoy listening and learning so much from you. You're
thank
you're
you.
incredible, and it's so brave. I love hearing
Thank
your
you.
story of being like, "Let's go. Let's do it."
Let's do
It's
it. I
awesome.
mean, there were moments of panic. Don't think it was always
Sure.
easy. There's moments where I'm like, oh my gosh, what am I doing? And but it has been really a great, kind of understanding, like, it will all be fine. There's just moments
Mhm.
where it's like, okay, we'll just give it a day and it'll all work out.
It'll
But
do it.
thank you for having me on
Yeah.
here. Let's not
Yeah.
make it another year and a half next time.
No,
So
no, absolutely. And thank you for joining us for this episode. Make sure to like and subscribe. Stay tuned next time for maybe part 2. Maybe we'll get to do another episode, doctor. And if you would, please leave a 5-star review. You can go into the settings and do that so that other people can be made aware of the OI show. Thanks. Have a good day.